All right, y'all remember we were talking about the Appalachian Mountains. The English colonists wanted to go west across the Appalachian Mountains. They were chasing after furs, but the French were in the fur trade and they didn't want the English dipping into their honeypot. So they told them, no, you can't cross these Appalachian Mountains. You have to stay over here on the East Coast. Well, now the English have beat the French. They fought the French and Indian War, and so the French aren't a problem anymore. So now these colonists start to move out west. They're going across the Appalachian Mountains. But they run into another problem. When they get out there, they run into a whole bunch of Native Americans. And these Native Americans do not want these English colonists on their land. So they get into kind of a skirmish about it. It really causes a problem with one Indian in particular named Pontiac. Pontiac was very influential with the other Native Americans. And so he kind of got a group together and he started a small war with the English colonists. So because of all that, they come up with something called the Proclamation of 1763. The Proclamation of 1763 drew an imaginary line across the very top of those Appalachian Mountains, where the British government said, okay, no colonists are supposed to cross the top of the Appalachian Mountains. Don't cross this imaginary line. As a matter of fact, any colonists that had already crossed that imaginary line were supposed to turn around and go back to the East Coast. Now, to enforce this, Great Britain sent 10,000 British troops. These British troops were supposed to go round up everybody west of this imaginary line and send them back. But they were kind of lazy and they really didn't want to do all that, so they just settled into some of the bigger cities on the Atlantic coast. The Proclamation of 1763 said they weren't supposed to go, but England was trying to make them come back, but the people that were supposed to be making them come back really didn't want to be bothered with it. They were just trying to draw a paycheck. Now, what really made the colonists mad on top of all this is the colonists were the ones that were supposed to pay for these 10,000 troops to be pushing everybody back across that imaginary line. So they're paying people to do a job that they're not doing. The way they were going to have to pay for them was up in taxes. The colonists decided, you know what, forget this. These British troops aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing anyway. We're just going to ignore this law and ignore this proclamation of 1763. We're going to go across there anyway and do what we want to do. One of the most famous people that ignored the proclamation of 1763 was a guy by the name of Daniel Boone. Daniel Boone went west across this imaginary line into what we know now as the state of Kentucky. He spent about 2 years exploring Kentucky, and he found an old Indian trail called the Cumberland Gap. He used the Cumberland Gap to bring a lot of people through that area, through that old Indian trail, and into the state of Kentucky. Because of these explorations, Daniel Boone was later able to lead these settlers to places where nobody else could have. While he was out west, though, he did get into a lot of fights with a lot of different Native American groups.